Our first guest is from Albuquerque Business First. He's a reporter. He says he has a face made for print, but we dragged him onto TV anyway.
That's right.
Damon Scott is here, and Andre, he has a story about a mining venture.
Sounds good to me. This sounds really good.
It really does.
So I understand it's Garnet, and it's something.
It is. It's something, it's something that you wouldn't ever imagine maybe, that someone might find in the middle of the desert. But, what I've learned through doing this story that really started probably a couple months ago. The beginnings of it is that New Mexico has garnet, in the southern part of the state. But this was sort of a very peculiar find that took place just about 50 miles north of El Paso.
That's out in the desert there.
It is, and I see there's a
map.
We've got a little map, but that'll tell you a little bit. It's very, sort of in between Alamogordo and El Paso, but
yeah.
The way this story started was really with a real estate guy that I was following, because that's my my main subject that I cover is real estate, and so it's sort of begins in Santa Fe, ends up in the southern part of the state, and it's been a very interesting story.
Will this have a big economic impact, you think, on the state?
That's one of the things that we looked into, and really, something I've learned through doing this story is that it's already had a little bit of an impact. It's going to have a phase 1 of operations, and then it's going to have a phase 2 and beyond. And so it has the potential. The actual mining hasn't started yet. It's been mostly exploration and testing at this point, but it does have the potential to have a very big impact on the southern part of the state, for sure.
Now, this all centers around a guy named Dan Burrell, who used to be the CEO of Rosemont Realty, which is a big real estate holding company out of Santa Fe, right?
That's right. That's right.
And he left that to go into garnet mining.
Right. Backing up a little bit is that it is a lot about Dan Burrell, and so.
That's him there.
That's him. And so some folks might remember there was a real estate company in Santa Fe called BGK Group. And what Dan did is he came from the East Coast about 5 years ago to, and Rosemont Realty acquired BGK Group in Santa Fe. So he started setting roots in Santa Fe about 5 years ago, and he turned what was BGK around into a very profitable real estate firm in Santa Fe, and they have most of their portfolio outside of New Mexico. About 10% is New Mexico, but even so, they're probably about the second largest office landlord in Albuquerque.
Yeah, I was going to say mostly commercial and office.
That's right.
Stuff, right.
That's right. And so he was on everybody's radar a little bit, and so I had followed him. But so he's a very successful CEO at Rosemont. He announced in September that he was leaving, but didn't say why he was leaving, and then just followed that a little bit, and then it turns out that it is this mining operation. But one thing about Dan specifically, Dan Burrell, is that he's one of those guys that doesn't really sit still for very long. He's always got something in the pipeline, and this was obviously a big deal that he had been lining up before he left Rosemont, but now he's really kicking it into gear.
Now, how speculative is this deal?
Right.
I mean, obviously they found what they think is a lot of garnet down there.
That's right.
Is there a market for this?
That's a good point. I'm sure that there's going to be some, fits and starts as they go along with this operation. But he has studied this area, studied this site. I mean, literally, it's a 300 foot mound in the middle of the desert. And but what he has done is he's done satellite imagery, he's done test drilling. But to answer your question, Larry, there's a potential for about 2.5 million tons of garnet in this one particular find, with some satellite finds around it as well that haven't been tested yet, but that are there. And as you ask about the market, one thing that I've learned in taking a look at the garnet market, and Dan Burrell hired a nationally known firm to give him literally a report on the market value of garnet. But one thing, Garnet, everybody thinks of jewelry, probably usually. What this operation is not to mine it for a gemstone. It's actually to mine it for industrial uses, which is
kind of thought it had some industrial properties, but
it does. It does, and the military is actually one of the larger customers, sometimes of what they call abrasive garnet for abrasives. And so, of course, we've got some military bases around the southern part of the state that could be one of his biggest customers in the short term.
That's interesting. That's what I've heard that about garnet, that it has that abrasive quality. So it's even been used for like sandpaper, for furniture, things like that.
That's true.
Even in water filtration systems, I've heard it can be used. So
that's right. And also, the oil and gas industry is one of the biggest customers of industrial grade garnet, and so obviously oil and gas is also a big big market in this state too. But I'll just mention one more thing about that. He is planning on having a processing facility built in one of the smaller towns there in southern New Mexico, and that's going to have a big effect. And then what they will do is then connect to a rail spur along the southern the border, where everybody knows of Santa Teresa, and then get it distributed to other points from there.
So in terms of jobs, what's this going to mean to that area?
I think the potential for jobs is it's pretty high. In the short term, it's going to be about 50 jobs right off the bat, to get things going. But then as things progress, Dan Burrell has told me when we've sat and talked that he'll hire workers, as far north as Santa Fe, Albuquerque, particularly in the southern part of the state, Las Cruces, Alamogordo. For a town like Anthony or Oro Grande, which is very near this find, it could be, have a very large impact in terms of jobs for construction, for contracting services, for, everything. There'll be higher level jobs like accounting and legal services and everything that comes with a new business.
Yeah,
that's great. More jobs to the market.
Not every day that you hear about a mine operation.
It's true.
Are the environmental types showing up to launch protests or any of that stuff yet?
But
you can always count on them.
No, that's true. Not to my knowledge, but it's funny that you bring up the environmental piece to this, because another thing I learned is with abrasives, often a product called coal slag is used for abrasives very commonly. Turns out that garnet is actually a much cleaner abrasive to use. So garnet is really in many ways way more environmentally safe than what is used often for abrasives. So I mean, he found something unique in many regards in the southern part of the state. Sure did.
I think I'm going to start digging in my backyard.
Yeah, see if there's any garnet down there.
For diamonds, garnets.
That's right.
Can we talk to real estate for just a moment? We have just a couple minutes left in this segment. Since you cover that for Albuquerque Business First, just give me a couple of trends that you're seeing for 2014, the year ahead.
Sure. We're starting to do our, at the Business First, our sort of year-end wrap-up stories that we do every year. And, I'll say one of the trends I've seen this year, which is, gonna carry over into next year, is that retail is doing pretty well in Albuquerque. Restaurants are doing well. Other types of retail that's really been the one sector that has outperformed the other sectors. Office has had some ups and downs. Downtown Albuquerque has had a little bit of a downtrend in office. North I-25 is doing very well in terms of the office market and in other ways too. But I think going into, and then of course we have the residential, piece too, but I think going into 2014, what the brokers are telling me is that we'll probably see in the first quarter a little bit of the same, but I should say that overall in 2013, whether it's retail, office, or industrial, there has been a improvement in all of those sectors. Just some a little bit less than others.
So there's more optimism among the broker types.
I would say definitely
They're
more
looking
optimism.
forward to the year more than they were this past year.
That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true.
This is interesting. You want to find out more about the Garnet mine? Damon's got full reporting on it at Albuquerque Business First, and of course you can follow all his real estate reporting there as well. I don't know, you ready to go to work in the Garnet mine?
Oh, yeah.
To maybe get some jewelry out of
Maybe
it
not for the
somehow.
abrasive side of things, but yeah.
Yeah, maybe there's some jewelry.
Sure.
That's really an interesting story.
That's great.
Well, I think Dan Burrell's he's one to watch this next year and going forward. He's going to be doing a lot.
I like hearing about business personalities that are doing some things.
That's right.
Yeah, we need those guys around here.
We do.
Damon, it's great to meet you and have you on the program. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.